crafty friends, it's Beverly here over at Crafting Chaos, and I'm here to show you how to make this waterfall mechanism. And if you hold on to the end of the video, I might release it in two parts. I do have a video showing you how to put the file together once you've made it. So this is what we're aiming for. We'll move it off to the side and we'll make a start. The first thing I'm going to do is bring on a couple of shapes. I'm going to bring on this square and this sort of, I don't really know what you'd call it, like a plaster I'd call it. Looks like a plaster shape. Anyway, so what we're going to do first of all, I'm going to make this with 10. Oops. And we want the height to be, I'll do it at 5 for now. No, I'll do it at, what did I do it at here? Let me just quickly have a look. I think I did it at 4. -0.75, so 5, so 4.25, 25, like so. So now we've got the basic rectangle shape that we need for the mechanism. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take a duplicate of that because we are going to need a few rectangles, so I'll just take a duplicate for now. Now then, what we need to do is we need to first of all put our score lines in position. So you'll need to go on this icon here, which is your path tool, click on that, and then we're going to hold the shift key down, click at one side of the rectangle and drag it to the other side and double click to anchor. That will select it for us and we're going to make that a score line like so. And if I just zoom in a little, you can see that that now is a score line. Unfortunately at the minute it's not at the middle, but we can sort that one out very, very easily. So I'm first of all going to select both of those shapes, both the line we've just created and the rectangle, and we're going to line it central and in the middle. So now that score line, I'm going to just do it again, we want it in the middle. Doesn't seem to be wanting to put it in the middle. If it's not getting it into the middle where you think the middle is, then we can always move it manually. So I'm going to click on that shape and I'm going to just scooch it down a little bit, have another look. And what I'm aiming for is that the score lines don't end right on one of the edges because that'll weaken the card. So what I've done is just scooted it around so that now that score line, although it's in the middle of the card, it's got a little bit of clearance both ends of the card, so it's not going to have that problem. And I'm going to select that shape and zoom back so we can see what we're doing. So we're going to zoom back out again so we can see. Now we need some more score lines. We need a total of 4 like so. Now, so I'm going to select everything. No, sorry, I'm going to select that shape and I'm going to duplicate it 3 more times. So I've got it 4 times in total. Now, what we're going to do next is we want these lines to be at, I'm just going to select that one on the first one and we're going to click on this one because we want them to be exactly the same distance apart from each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the snap to grid feature, which is in the artboard, which is the fine one down here, and I'm just going to scoot them along so that they're lined up to the grid lines now, and then we can select our score lines and we can click it on, and now that's put that one exactly 0.5 inches away from that one, and we can do the same here. So now that's exactly 0.5 inches from that one. And for a final time, snap to grid function is very useful for doing things like this. So now we've got that situation. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to our layers. I'm going to click on the ones that we've got and we're going, oh, before you do that, you just need to take off the snap to grid. So because I've just wanting to move them now independently so that I can just get that clearance top and bottom. So back onto the layers, and just scoot it down. When you're happy with it, I can zoom in. As long as it's not touching either side, I'm not too worried. Like so. Another way to do it is to select those, and then you can line them up. This is a quicker way of doing it, to the top, and then we can move them all down together so they're equidistant. So they're now all exactly. So if we just select them all, now that they're all level, and we can move them down until we're happy that they're all... Oh, I did undo that one, I didn't want to do that. Just going to select them all once more. Keep pressing down instead of select. So we're selecting them all, and we're just moving them down because it looks like they are in the middle, but that puts it more in the middle. So now we've got that first score line that is in the middle, then we've got this one half an inch away from that first cent, and then another half an inch away, and a final half an inch away. Now we do want one more so that we can have that last piece fold over. So again, we need to be, actually I thought, after I'd thought about this, that it would be better to do that last fold line manually, because then you'll know how far it needs to pull out, as I show you in the video. So I would manually score that last one, because it would be much simpler. So next we're going to make the piece that makes this part here. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to resize. So now what we've got is, let's just bring on our other one here so you can see where we're up to. Let's just zoom fit to mark so we can see what we're doing. So we're here now with that. Notice we have, like so, it's bigger and it needs to be bigger. Okay, so if we're measuring from there to there, that bit needs to just hang over slightly, but enough so that we get an overlap at either side. So I'm just going to resize this down to about 6 inches, and we're going to make it 0.75, like so. And then I'm just going to rotate that by 90 degrees. And we're going to just move that one out of the way for now, and we're going to bring this one on. So now we need to line those two up to the middle, like so. We can always adjust the other lines if we need to, and we need to just scoot it on so it's just overlapping slightly. Then select the end one and the middle one, and in edit menu you want process overlap and weld. So that's created our tab for the bottom of the card. The next thing we need is this piece here, and this is where this piece comes in. Notice I'm not grouping them yet, because otherwise it will just not work. So we're just going to shrink that down until it makes a nice size for the pull tab, and I've just done what I didn't want to do and disturb them. So be careful when you're doing this bit not to disturb your score lines. Now, what I'm going to do with this is first of all take a duplicate of it, because we are going to need one, oops, that we're going to use as our, what we would cut in a different colour that shows underneath the arrow, like I show you in the how to make it video. So we're just going to line this up. We're going to leave it sticking out, and we want it to line up with that middle shape to the middle. So let's line that up. And while they're both selected, we can then weld. So that's created that part. Now, as it's moved slightly, we can just readjust so we get them score lines back in that central position so that we've got that clearance. If I just zoom in, top and bottom, so it's not going to weaken your card. So now that we've got that bit finished, oops, zoom fit to mat, we're going to carefully select all of those parts, so the 4 score lines and the main shape, and we are going to layer and group them. Now we can move that piece around independently of the others, and that's going to work fine. Okay, now We know that we made this shape when we originally made it, 4.25 inches. So our squares that we're going to need for our first layer onto the card need to be 4.25 inches. So we're going to click onto the maintain aspect ratio and resize to 4.25 inches. Now, if we offer this up here, we can see that's going to fit on there perfectly, like so. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to, first of all, put a little bit of colour in, and then we can see where we're going with this. So we're just going to add a little bit of colour so that we can see what we're doing. So our score lines are in position. I'm going to make this layer a pink layer just for argument's sake. And I'll just take down the opacity so it's not too bright on the eyes. This piece that we're creating now, you'll obviously need to cut it 4 times to be able to make the 4 mechanism pieces. So what you would do next is, if you wanted it to be a little bit more fancy, you click on your shape. We want an offset line. We want it to come inwards. You can choose 0.04 or 0.08, it's up to your preference, and that will give us an extra line. We can then make that a drawing line, and also, a dotted line and a drawing line using the menus at the top. So when it's selected, we can choose our line pattern from here, and we want draw rather than cut. So then we can select both of those, layer and group. Now, so you cut that, four of them exactly that size, and they will form your waterfall flip over pieces, if you will. So the next thing you need to do, if we just take a duplicate of that square, and we're going to ungroup, and we'll delete that stitch line. We'll take another duplicate in a minute because we need another matting layer. So if that one was 4.25, we'll make this one 4.25. So we're going to make this one 3.75 and say OK. So that's going to mat nicely on top of that one. Now this one I did in patterned paper, so I didn't bother doing the actual drawing. I put the lines in to draw, but I didn't actually get the machine to draw it because I cut it out of coloured paper. But I'll add the file with things in. So again, we're going into the offset function, inward by 0.08, say OK. While it's selected, change the line to your whichever drawing line, dotted line you want, and change the function to draw. So now you've got cut, draw, like so. So if you just choose cut on your machine, it'll do the cut function, not the draw. So you can either just cut it out of pattern paper, or you can use another solid piece of paper and have that as your matting layer. So we are just going to put a little bit of colour into this one. So we'll make this one, for argument's sake, blue. Oops, not that one. We want the bit behind to be blue. So blue, like so. And that's given us our second matting layer. So we need to select both of those and group those together. So that's going to be your second layer in your stack, if you will. So you'd prepare these. Now my final layer, I know I went down by 1/2 inch with this last one, but we're going to go down to 3.5 inches for this next one, because I'm not going to put any drawing on there or anything like that at all. So this one needs to be 3.5 inches. And again, now I'm just going to bring this one to the top, bring to front, change the colour so we can see. Now this is the one that I cut in white cardstock, so that I could then mat that in so it just fits, snuggles in nicely in between your stitching when you get it centred, which I haven't at the minute, and obviously you're doing this on paper when you're sticking it all together. So now I quite like the look of having that double stitch border if I was going to have 2 solid colours, or I'd have some pattern paper instead. So that's your layer. So that's the layer then that I went on to ink. I did some ink blending with my oxide inks, and also I did some brown craft card like for the sand on my example that I showed you. Right, so the final thing that I did to make the file complete, because obviously when this folds through, where these two fold under them, if you watch the video on how to assemble it, you'll see what I mean, is we've produced this greeting, which I've just moved because it wasn't lined up. It's not grouped at the minute, so this is the greeting, okay? So basically, it's about the same size as that piece that we've just created. So I'm going to make a duplicate of that. I'll just move this out of the way. And I'm going to make an offset. So again, in your edit, create an offset, but this time I'm going to go outwards. And I want it round and say OK. And then I'm going to do another one, make it outward and say OK. So I've got two offsets. Now, I actually want this one, not this one, hang on, let me just get the right one. The middle one to be actually a bigger offset than that. So I'm just going to take that one off and go back to this one what we've got originally. And I'm just going to do it inwards now. So now we've got that shape that's going to be cut. I'm going to go in by 0.8 and say OK. Make that a drawing line and a perforating line so that it's like a stitched line. Then from that one I want an offset, but I want it bigger. I made it 0.012 because I like the look of that. And you can play around this as much as you want. And there's our shape. So we've now got an outer line that we'll cut and two inner line dashed lines that we'll draw. And then we can select both of those, or all three of those, layer and group. Then the final thing to do is create the greeting just by using the text icon here. Go onto the top properties box, select a font that you like, whichever you fancy. I've got quite a few on here that are a bit different. I'm just going to do it in Big Top, I think. And I'm just going to do Happy Birthday. Notice at the minute I'm doing it all in one. So I'm going to fill that green. Now if I select fill on there, when that goes to draw, it will fill on your machine. Then I'm going to go on my resizing because that birthday is not going to fit in where we've got it in that file now. I'm just going to move it into position and see if it fits. Could just do to be a little bit smaller. And then we'll offer it up again and see if we're like, yeah, that's going to be fine. So all you need to do then is go on to Edit and Break Apart, so that makes each letter individual, and I'm going to group. So right click, when you've got them selected, either right click and group, or you can go layer and group. So I'm going to do the same thing with birthday, so I'm going to go on layer and group so that you've seen it both ways. And then I can position these where I think they look okay in terms of distance apart, etc. And I can select everything then, well, not everything, just everything that we're working on, and we're going to have that in the middle. So then we've got our happy birthday, and that is then complete. Now, only thing you need to remember to do is alter it to a drawing line or it will cut it out. So we need also the happy and the birthday to be draw lines. So that's the file. That's how you create the waterfall mechanism. It is a fairly straightforward size, and the beauty of it is once you've created it, you can select everything that you've created. You can edit and you can group, layer and group, And we can take the size right down to a teeny weeny waterfall, or we can take it as far up as we can, as big as we can fit it on the mat actually. And if you've got if you had a 12 by 24 mat, then you could turn the file round and have it even bigger. So obviously your parameters are only restricted to whatever size you make it. So let's just go back to where we were at the original size. I think we're there now. Just redo that because that's where we're up. Because then if I leave this greeting in, that should also fit this one. There is actually just one thing that I forgot to show you. So I'm just going to go onto this main file and I'm just selecting it, and I've layered and ungrouped it because I've just remembered I've not shown you how to put the arrow in there. To do that, all you need is the rounded triangle, and you need to shrink it down, rotate it by 90 degrees and flip it, and then I squished it down so that it's not as tall as it is wide, positioned it into the centre of that one there, select the main shape and the small shape that you've just created, and then you need to do edit and subtract. So that's effectively punched that hole out now. So then we can reselect all of those and the score lines, and we can layer and group. So now that's got that punched area in. So you've got the file complete, and you've been shown how to make the matting layers. Remember I said that this piece here is what you use for underneath in a different colour, and if you watch the video on how to create the file, that all becomes apparent. Now what I will try to do is, if I just edit, undo that, go back to where I was, there. I can delete these now because obviously I've already made the file and I don't need a duplicate, but I will leave as a bonus, as an extra greeting, if for the one that you download for free if you wish to, the happy birthday, as well as the, oops, I've done it again, as well as the wishing you an amazing birthday. So you've got those two birthday ones, but obviously if you're making your own file, you can do whatever you want in terms of your greetings. So when you finish creating your file, just make sure all your pieces fit onto the mat without going outside of the dotted area. So I'm just dragging everything back on. I don't need that piece I've already got, and so on. And that piece is just a rectangle that's slightly less wide than that, so less than 0.75, I think I did 0.72, and that's going to join on the back of those two when you put the file together to give it a little bit more room to adhere to the card, and you'll see that if you watch the making the card video. As always, if you've liked what you've seen, please like, share and subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends where to find me. Remember, the file will be available for free download over on my blog. And I hope you've enjoyed watching. There was a really positive response of people wanting to see the cards and how it was made, and how the file was made. So I hope you'll all tune in and watch the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Happy crafting. Bye.